Okay, on to other matters this week. I don't know if you saw the story about the BBC. During one of their training groups, they are alleged to have hired a transgender campaign group to conduct staff training. Now, over and above the staff training that you would expect from a transgender group, where perhaps they would talk about terminology, where perhaps they might talk about suitable pronouns, how you differentiate between referring to someone who is perhaps gay or perhaps from the transgender community, this training group actually spoke about how journalists could lobby politicians on transgender identity issues. And there was also a programme to encourage universities to follow guidance on trans discrimination. Well, Debbie Hayton is a journalist and joins me now. Now, Debbie, I hate introducing you like this, but I really feel that the context is really important for people who listen, because you are yourself transgender. That's fair to say, right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Thank you for telling us that, because I think that this debate is so divisive that it's really important that people's identity within these conversations are important. Now, I'll give mine. As a gay man myself, I would have no problem with the BBC within a training context saying, well, look, if you're going to refer to gay people, this is how gay people like to be referred to. This is how trans people like to be referred to. These are the rules around what sort of pronouns people prefer. Those sorts of training, I think, is useful, it's respectful, it's helpful. The bit that I think is a bit troubling, and I don't know whether you agree, is, well, now the BBC sort of saying to its journalists, well, this is how you lobby politicians on these issues. I'm not sure BBC journalists should be lobbying politicians on any issues.
Well, no, they shouldn't. The BBC have got strict impartiality rules, and they're being told here to lobby and also to protest as well, I noticed. It just seems wrong, because what are they actually asking what are they being asked to lobby about as well? What I think has happened is we've gone beyond transgender inclusion and, and LGBT inclusion. I think, I don't know what your feeling is, Cristo, but we're included and we're accepted in UK society. This is about ideology and about changing the way people think. And that's why I think it's dangerous. And that's why I think it's right to point it out. Even when I suspect the public is perhaps getting a little tired of all these transgender issues, but something has been happening. Something has been happening in policy and in practice under the radar by stealth, which has changed the way people think and got to the point where the BBC think it's okay that their journalists are being told to protest and lobby.
Well, I think that there lies the problem. I mean, my question for you, though, as a member of the trans community, even though I don't actually even I hate the idea of everyone being the sort of this community, but anyway, for want of a better language, for someone who is trans themselves, to what extent, how much information about trans people should BBC journalists who are training be told? What kind of training is allowed, and what kind of training crosses the line, would you say?
Well, I'm not sure what training is really needed. I think there's a lot of awareness of trans people in society, where we have the same rights as everybody else. We do the same jobs as everybody else. I don't really see the need for all this training. But what seems to be happening is it's pushing this ideology that we all have this almost like the trans people have got some special secret knowledge about human, human psychology. I think the journalists were told to, to use their magical ally powers. Well, if they've got magical ally powers, what have I got? And it's nonsense, Cristo, and it's dangerous nonsense.
I disagree with you a little, in as much as, I'll return to what I said when I was introducing this part. I think that it's good for journalists, just from a terminology point of view, to be able to know how to refer to different interest groups within this conversation. So, i.e., there are people who are transgender. There are people who identify, whether you agree with the concept or not. There are people who identify as non-binary. There are people who identify as gender fluid. There are people who are gay. There are people who are lesbian. There are people who are bisexual. Within all of those that terminology. I think that that's fair enough for people to learn that terminology and learn the context in which that terminology is appropriate. What I don't want is an opinion about whether people should be lobbied about that, an opinion about whether gender fluidity is right or wrong in the context of women's rights. It's not opinions I want, it's just terminology I want. But it sounded like you weren't in favour of that even.
Well, I think there's cause to be told that transgender people exist, but you've got to be living on Mars for the last 3 years not to realise that, I think, and that people should be treated with dignity and respect. And beyond that, I'm not really sure what's necessary on a training course. Treat everybody with dignity and respect, and you shouldn't go far wrong.
But if you're a young journalist, knowing the difference between someone who's transgender and non-binary, I think that's surely something that's important that a journalist knows. You're not saying whether that person's right or wrong. You're just telling them that this is someone who is this is someone that is that, this is what that means.
But what is the difference between somebody who's transgender and somebody who's non-binary? Well, these are artificial terms that have been imposed on us to say that somebody is non-binary. It doesn't really have any meaning. There isn't a special quality which we have inside our heads to say that we're non-binary.
No, that is, with respect, an opinion-based view that someone else might disagree with. Now, I'm not asking that those people be trained to disagree with that opinion. I'm just asking them to know what they're identifying and what they're discussing. That's all. I mean, there might be someone within a debate they're hosting who holds your opinion that says, well, look, that's a faux expression. That's a faux label. But unless they know what you're arguing against by knowing what non-binary means, how are they going to be able to host a debate? How are they going to be able to put a report together?
Well, yes. Sorry, I'll agree with you on that. That journalists need to be aware of the issues and aware of the issues that they're going to be reporting on. Where I struggle with is where one narrow set of definitions is seen to be accepted as gospel, and actually, gospel is perhaps an appropriate word to be using, because we are seeming to be imposing almost like a quasi-religious idea that we have these inequalities.
And I think that's fair, and I think that actually we're not too far away from our opinions on this, that we agree that telling someone that it's right or wrong is where it's wrong, but actually just identifying what it is they're going to be reporting on, I think, is important. It's the lobbying that's the problem, and it's really good to have you identify that with us and tell us why that's wrong. Debbie Hayton, good to talk to you.